Hi, I'm Tabitha Soren, and this is The Week in Rock. Trouble-plagued rapper and actor Tupac Shakur is dead at the age of 25, just about a week after sustaining 4 bullet wounds last Saturday night in Las Vegas. Shakur spent the weekend in the hospital on a respirator in critical...
Rap artist Tupac Shakur silenced his voice, but not his legacy. This never-before-released song, obtained by hard copy, is our gift to his fans. In this exclusive jailhouse interview, taped less than a year before he died, the gangster rap star pledged to give up the thug life.
This prison gave me so much knowledge and it put me on such a right track that I would like to do a whole tour of prisons.
After he was bailed out, the lure of his old image eventually sidetracked the singer, this time for good. Just 2 months after shooting this music video, Tupac Shakur was gunned down in an unsolved drive-by.
He's got skills, but tells the day you put on a hits, the day Diddy admits that he put the hit out, they got Pop kill, ah?
I told you you can't trust these niggas. Now Puffy done killed Tupac, man.
Now it was this documentary that claimed, which we know wasn't true.
Yeah, check this out. We don't talk about things that are nonsense. We don't even entertain nonsense, my brother. So we're not even going to go there, with all due respect, but I appreciate you as a journalist asking. Thank you.
Because listen, 7 years ago, I'd have been like, yo, did you hire somebody to kill Pac? But no, you do it like a journalist.
Yeah, no, I mean, we wouldn't even get into nonsense like that. You know what I'm saying? It's nonsense.
Which we never believed, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
The death of Tupac Shakur is one of the most unfortunate in the history of hip-hop. And this is even made worse by the fact that it has remained unsolved since 1996. But 2 names have constantly remained in the mystery: Keith D and none other than P. Diddy. Diddy has been the subject of several controversies in the last few months, and this only adds fuel to the rumor that he paid $1 million to Keith D to get the rapper killed.
You guys met up with Zip in L.A.
At Wingstop.
At Wingstop.
Yeah. Not Wingstop, but Hot Wings. L.A. Hot Wings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess you said that Puffy called and said, "Was that us?" And you didn't say nothing.
I didn't say nothing. Yeah, you're right.
There's also, you go into the book, that apparently there was supposed to be $1 million that Zip was supposed to bring back, but he ended up keeping the money and buying a nightclub with it.
That's what the FBI said.
The FBI said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys never got any money?
Never.
For anything?
Nothing. Not even a pair of Sean John drawers. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. It seemed like Puff do that though. He seemed like every time some bad shit go around here, it look like it's some shit on the grass. He don't step around that shit. He get away from that bullshit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about how you made a crucial mistake by having a big meeting in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it wasn't in the neighborhood. It was at a park outside of the neighborhood.
Okay, in Cerritos.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the mistake that you made?
I said I was just going to get some bread from Puff to get us some guns because they kept on raiding our houses, taking our guns.
And there was informants that was listening to this whole conversation.
Yeah, they was there. Exactly.
And they reported that back.
Yeah. I wish you can enter the FBI's. They don't do shit like this. You know what I'm saying? Greg Hayden, he was just an LA detective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he act like he made me crumble and all that. He didn't make me crumble. It's my friends around me. They took me down.
Right. Because, well, your whole life is being turned upside down at this point.
Exactly.
You had this multi-million drug operation done.
Yeah.
You know, FBI, police raids, guns being taken, people starting to turn informant and turning against you.
Exactly.
It was that one event changed everything in your life.
Exactly.
How stressed out were you during this time?
I was just watching my ass more likely, you know what I'm saying?
Well, Suge, because of that fight, Suge was looking at violating his probation.
Yes.
Because, well, I've covered this already. you know, earlier there, you know, he had pulled out a gun on these two producers and shot it in the air and made them strip.
Yeah.
And he was on probation over that situation.
Yeah.
You know, I interviewed the president of Solar Records who talked about that.
They're in the building. We're paying all the bills. We get a phone bill from the studio floor that was something like, I want to say, $8,000 for a month.
Okay.
So Griffey calls Suge in, and he says, look at this bill. This is ridiculous. If you can't get those knuckleheads down there to stop using the phone, I'm going to throw you out. So that night, Suge comes into the building, you know, goes up to the third floor, and one of the Stanley brothers was on the phone. And I wasn't there, so this is what was reported to me, you know, that he asked the guy to get off the phone, and he said, and I think the Stanley brothers had been part of the world-class wrecking crew, and they were actually there to try and get Dre, who by then is becoming known as a hit producer, to do something for them. And so he tells Suge, he didn't know who Suge really was. He said, hey, look, I'm one of Dre's guests. Go talk to him. And Suge said, I don't talk to him. I run this. He said, man, go, leave me alone. So Suge apparently goes out, goes back downstairs to his car, gets a gun, comes back, puts the gun to his head, and says, motherfucker, I told you to get off the phone. So then he hangs up the phone, and Suge takes him into the major room. We had the studio, we had a big, it was a big studio, because we constructed it in the days when you made records with musicians. And so, you know, in the olden days, if you wanted to do a string date, you would bring in the string section from the LA Philharmonic, and that's how you do string overdubs and stuff. So we had a studio that was big enough to accommodate all those. So Suge brings him into the studio and has everybody, you know, people from the rehearsal. I said, I want you all to come in here. And he said, this is what's going to happen if you use that phone. And so he tells the guy, take off his clothes. And he says, I'm not taking off my clothes. So then he shoots the gun he has by the guy's ear.
So Suge was already on probation. Here he is in this video kicking Orlando. He tried to say that he slipped and he was trying to stop it.
Yeah.
But he actually paid Orlando $60,000 to testify that Suge didn't do anything.
Yeah, he paid us, yeah.
And did that kind of ease the tensions in Compton?
Yeah, yeah.
That after Pac got killed, Puffy gave Zip $1 million that was supposed to be handed over, and Zip ended up keeping it. And I remember when I interviewed T.K. Kirkland, who was actually roommates with Zip at one point. They were that close. He actually said, yeah.
The feds said that too.
He said that shit actually, after Tupac got killed, Puffy allegedly gave the money.
I heard
to Zip.
Yes.
And Zip was supposed to give the money to Keefe and them.
Yes.
But he never gave the money to him.
But thank God he never gave him the money, right? Think about it. If he gave the money, Puffy will be in prison now, money for hire, a murder for hire. So thank God. If this is a true story, I'm not saying yes or no, but if he would have gave them the money, it'd have been a murder for hire and Puffy would be locked up.
While all of these were pretty speculative for a long time, they've become more serious in the last few months. And prosecutors and the general public are starting to pay more attention to Diddy's role in Tupac's murder, especially after his recent sex trafficking allegations.
Eric, I'll start with you on this. Is this whole sex trafficking thing, is this the chickens coming home to roost as far as Sean Combs is concerned?
Well, yes, there's a lot of allegations that have come out recently with these civil lawsuits about his involvement with some possible sex trafficking. So that's been very, very in the news. It's been newsworthy lately. So yes, it is something that's being looked into.
Derek, take me back to that night in 1999 when we had the shooting at the nightclub in Manhattan. You were part of the group of police officers who took Sean Combs into custody. Tell me what happened.
When I got to the Midtown North Precinct, It was a lot of people out, a lot of cops. As soon as I walked in, all the attorneys applauded me. They said, finally, somebody with brains is here. So I had talked to the attorneys and told them, listen, I just got here. The chief told me I was in charge, but he was a higher rank than I was. And I said, I'm going to try to situate everybody because I knew they had attorneys, so their right to counsel was already there. They couldn't be questioned by us or anyone. So I took Puffy, my partner took J-Lo, and we put them in cars, and we took them back to the Midtown South precinct because that was the precinct of occurrence where Club New York was. Now, while I was there, I talked to the detectives that were going to have the case, and the biggest concern was Sean Combs the shooter? Did he have any involvement in this the shooting of the woman in the club, and possibly several other people that might have got injured? Shine was definitely there. He was Jamal Barrow, that's his name. He was caught with the gun coming out of the club by the uniform officers. He was arrested on the spot, so he was brought to the precinct as well. While we were there at the Midtown South precinct, we were told by the DA's office, because we had to notify them, that Matt Bogdanis, who was the DA in charge, he didn't want anybody spoken to or questioned until he got there, and then he would deal with the attorneys. And then we took it from there.
To this day, the victim in that case says that Sean Combs is the one who shot her, that it was not Shine who shot her. What is your response to that?
Well, I can only tell you what I remember. I remember that night there was a lot of things going on. There was a lot of police brass around, a lot of detectives. And basically we had several people that had to be interviewed or spoken to. She was one of them. I do remember something about glass fragments hitting her. Nothing about a bullet hitting her in the face. I mean, I didn't do the overall interview of her because there were several other witnesses, and then I had to deal with Diddy and then J-Lo. So there were the detectives that were in the Midtown South squad. They were pretty much conducting the interviews because that was their precinct. So they were taking over mostly of that. But she had said something about him shooting, but I don't remember totally about Puff had a gun. That's what I don't remember.
Tim, what is your feeling on the sex trafficking allegations? Because we've had these civil suits that started being filed last year. Somewhere around November or so. The first one was by Cassie, and that kind of opened up the floodgates. Others followed, including one by Little Rod, a man claiming he had been sexually assaulted by Sean Combs and even another actor, a really famous actor, Cuba Gooding Jr. Is this all, do you think this investigation stems solely from these allegations, or do you think there's just been this cloud of suspicion around Sean Combs for so long, and then we finally got some court documents that outlined something concrete, and the feds were like, you know what? It's time. We got to move on this guy, because there's always been some smoke around Puffy, not to, no pun intended, but there's always been something going on with this guy, despite the glitz and the glamour and the Sean John and the white party on Long Island and all of that.
In Las Vegas. So that's where that stemmed from. Now, everybody's saying there's a lot of different things about people saying, well, there was money paid for this, money paid for that. There was an allegation that money was put up for protection money. And the protection money might have included maybe the possible assassination of Suge or Tupac. So that's still up in the air. Nobody could really corroborate that. It's been said, but it's still out there in the case.
The thing that's interesting about this is that Keefe D claims that Zip Martin, who was friendly with Sean Combs, gave him the gun to kill Tupac and Suge. So obviously it is still up in the air, but Sean Combs's name came up quite a bit in the grand jury testimony, Derek. There was Reggie Wright, who was the head of security for Death Row Records, talked about Sean Combs a lot and was outlining this East-West rivalry, this East Coast, West Coast thing that was going on. So it's still up in the air. But do you think it was maybe like one of those things where it was all talk? Or do you think that there might be something there?
No, there's some truth to it. Listen, I've talked to several. Listen, I was one of the first detectives out there on that shooting, on his homicide. And then the case went off, the Las Vegas, the problem you had in this case was that the Las Vegas PD and the Los Angeles PD and the Inglewood PD were at odds. There was corruption problems out in Los Angeles that stemmed with the Inglewood PD with Reggie Wright and his family. So there wasn't a lot of, I would say, cooperation between the departments. I mean, here it is for me coming out from New York, dealing with two departments was very difficult because, there was a lot of things that were going on back then. But some of the things that were said were probably true. They just can't be corroborated right now. I know Zip very well. I spoke with him. I had him arrested when he came into in New York on another case. I had warrants on him. And I had contacted LAPD to come out to talk to him when I had him. And those guys, it was Fred Miller and I think the gentleman who wrote the book Labyrinth, I can't think of his name, Russell Poole. They wouldn't come out. And I had Zip for warrants and I had processed him through the system here in New York, but he would never talk to me. He said he couldn't snitch. He couldn't tell me what was really going on with that. And he kept that secret until his death.
Yeah, he died of cancer. So Zip Martin, you knew him. He just wouldn't talk.
That's correct.
Zip and clarify some things, right?
Well, the thing about it is that Puff used to say that Zip was his uncle. You understand? Puff used to say that Zip was his uncle, and people trying to say that Zip worked for Puff father. Zip ain't never worked for Puff father. Puff father wasn't that big for Zip to be working for him. Freddie Myers ran that whole area over there. From 110th Street all the way up to 118th, 23rd, that's Freddie Myers blocks. Those was not Puff father's blocks. So people don't know what they talking about when they say Zip used to work for his father. That's some bullshit. And I told you the story that Freddie Myers told us about that. Now, the relationship with Zip and Keefe D, whenever I saw them, we were either partying or they were gambling, shooting dice. 20, 30,000, 10,000 in the game. You know what I'm saying? They throwing licks for 20, 10, 15. They were shooting dice for big money. You understand? I told y'all that one time when Tretch came in there with Arnell Simpson on his arm and he took all their money. Tretch was my boy. I was like, yeah. And when he walked out the door, Big Gene, hit him up. Tretch always looked out. Hit him up. So now, I never, ever seen Keefe D and Puff have a conversation about doing anything to Tupac or Suge Knight. There's only one Crip, and I said this before, that I ever heard to say somebody, and that was D-Mac. And that was a dude who worked at Sean John, that he was a Crip out there in California. And that night when I told them somebody gonna come kill us, he said, yo, we lock and load together. We lock and load together. I said, I don't see none of you niggas locking nothing. I don't see none of y'all loading nothing. So now, I never seen them have no conversation about doing nothing to Pac or nothing to Suge, Keefe D, or none of them. You understand what I'm saying? Only seen D-Mac say that. Yo, I got these dudes out there. I told Puff I got to. Yo, he never said it around Puff. He said it around us. Showing off, I guess. So now, when Pac got murdered, I don't know how much time had elapsed, but my man was sitting on the block on 112th Street. Zip had came around in the new, I don't know what was it. I don't know if it was the Aston Martin. I don't know if it was the Rolls. It was something. I forgot the car. And that's when he showed us a check for $1 million and said he got it from Blackground Records, Barry Hankerson, and Jimmy Henchman. Showed us the check, put it right. Say $1 million, when you own a record company, that's what's going into my mind. That's what I'm thinking. Then when this came out years later and said they gave Zip $1 million for that he was supposed to be giving Keefe D them for the Tupac thing, I'm like, I seen that check.
Mo Preem, Tupac's brother, also talked about the situation.
Tupac feel about Puffy after he got shot at Quad Studios? Because I know he felt like, you know, Puffy had something to do with it, or he knew what was going to happen.
He felt like he was set up because he thought he was amongst friends. And when it went down, he was surrounded by a bunch of people we thought was his friends.
And he felt like Puffy, he knew what was going to happen, and he didn't give him a heads up?
Well, yeah. I mean, he saw C's up in the window, like, come up, come on, come up. And everybody drawing him in. You know, come to the studio. You know what I mean? And Bad Boy had saturated the whole that neighborhood. That they were in the studio, multiple rooms in the studio, and they were shooting a video around the corner. So Bad Boy and their allies had covered that whole neighborhood. They were there, you know. They weren't nothing for Pac to fear because we supposed to have been amongst allies. You know, so something happened. Somebody knew.
Yeah, I can see how Pac felt like they had something to do with the setup, man. But speaking of Puffy, right, how do you feel about the rumor that Puffy, he gave a guy named Eric Von Zip a check for $1 million to give to Keefe D to kill Tupac?
I'm familiar with the story. I'm familiar with the dude. My man Big Psych, rest in peace, used to know that dude.
So you met Von Zip before. So how does that make you feel, man? Somebody that you met, and I'm sure that he knew that you was Tupac's brother. How does that make you feel knowing that he's the one that provided Keefe D with the gun to kill Tupac?
I mean, it's all fucked up. It was a setup. It was a plot to murder my brother. I feel fucked up about it. I don't know that nigga, but I ain't got no love for none of them.
And Keefe D, the man who's believed to have pulled the trigger in Pac's death, is also the subject of a new piece of evidence. And this has stopped him from being eligible for release on bail.
They're not only ugly on the outside, but they ugly on the inside too.
Dwayne Keefe D. Davis lashing out at prosecutors during another hearing about releasing him on bail.
And you just use something in the boxes. They just use something in the boxes. From 1996.
Those boxes contain a 2006 interview from a gang member who prosecutors say implicates Davis in Shakur's murder.
He makes that statement 2 years before any confession the defendant ever made.
But speaking out of turn, Davis says he believes those boxes came from retired LAPD detective Greg Kading, who interviewed Davis as part of the investigation into the death of rapper Notorious B.I.G. In a recorded interview, Davis told Kading what happened in Shakur's case, believing he would have immunity.
The boxes should not be allowed. They've been at his house for 15 years, and he's doing interviews, going in the boxes.
Well, Tuesday's hearing centered on that new evidence. The main reason was Davis's bail, the judge denying Davis's first attempt over concerns the man putting up the more than $112,000 was really a middleman. She also said she was concerned Davis could profit off the alleged crime, but Davis's attorney says no law prevents that until a person is convicted.
Right now, his son, myself, even he can enter into a contract with any media entity and make money on this case.